Hi, welcome to Garden Wise. I'm your host and local landscape architect, Billy Goodnick, and I have the privilege of being at the horticultural jewel in the crown of the Santa Barbara area. I'm at Lotusland in the recently redone Japanese garden. Fabulous place. I'm just so happy. We got a lot to cover today. We're going to talk about wines and wineries. Yes, that has something to do with sustainable landscaping. We're going to give you some tips for your fruit trees, and we're also going to start a new segment. We're talking about our viewer mail, so stay tuned. But first, we're going to Paradise Farm in Goleta to talk about fall foliage trees that just might fit in your garden. I'm at Paradise Farm in Goleta, and we're here to talk about fall foliage color. Now, usually when we think about Santa Barbara, it's about palm trees and tropical plants, but there's great opportunities for fall color. And sure, some of these deciduous plants need a little bit of extra water, but if you pick the right plant, you put it in the right place, and you get it off to a good start with your irrigation, you'll have no trouble growing these plants and still keeping your water bill down. Ready for a tongue twister? Parthenocissus tricuspidata. It's also known as Boston ivy. It's a plant that will cling to a masonry surface, or concrete is best. They turn a brilliant kind of burgundy wine color, and then after the leaves fall off, you get this beautiful fine tracery of branches on it. So it's got personality year-round. Crepe myrtle, botanical name Lagerstromia indica, comes in a lot of different varieties, many of which have been hybridized to grow well in coastal areas. They really like dry heat, like in the Santa Ynez Valley, but there's quite a few that do beautifully here. They come in a range of colors from white to soft pink to a lavender to some really dark maroon colored reds. Tiny clusters of flowers at the ends of the branches. Wonderful fall color. Chinese pistache, also known as Pistacia chinensis, is a wonderful medium-sized tree. Makes a decent shade tree over a patio. It gets very reliable color, ranging from yellow and orange and moving toward a little bit more of a reddish as the season goes on. It also happens to be pretty low water using once you get it off to a good start, so it's a welcome addition to any garden. If you're creating a garden that's primarily native plants, or you just like the idea of more native plants in your garden, Western redbud or Cercis occidentalis is probably the one for you. In the early spring, even late winter, it gets these tiny little pink flowers on it. They attract native bees, which is wonderful. They turn more of a yellowish golden color in the fall, and the leaves are a delightful heart-shaped leaves. Japanese maple, botanical name is Acer palmatum. There are many, many hybrids for this plant with different shades of foliage. Some of them start out kind of a red wine color, others just kind of a nice clear green. They all change color going into fall. I like using them where they'll get a little bit of afternoon shade or protection, but some morning sun, that's probably ideal. They accept pruning really well, probably do it in the winter time when you can see all the branches, and just look really delightful when you open them up a little bit. Want wonderful fall color and something to munch on at the same time? I'm a huge fan of persimmon, Diospyros khaki. Persimmon trees are trainable to be about the size of a citrus tree in our yards, or you can let them go and they'll become about a 20 or 25-foot tree. There's two types of fruit. The hachia is a little more oblong and it's kind of soft and squishy. And then there's the fuyu, which is more like an apple and you just kind of eat it that way. They also have a very beautiful bark, kind of this corky, cracky bark as they get older, and the fall color's amazing. Ginkgo tree, see my face light up? Ginkgo biloba. They have a beautiful golden leaf that's shaped like a fan. They're a little bit gawky in their youth, like some of us, but as they grow up, they fill in really, really nicely. A lot of people are familiar with hydrangea. It's used as a cut flower and it grows in our yards and has like this big pom-pom, usually blue. It has a cousin called oak leaf hydrangea. It's Hydrangea quercifolia, which is a more stout shrub and has longer cone-shaped flowers. The spectacular thing about it, of course, is the foliage. They turn a really nice wine red that holds on for a very long time into the winter. reliably low water using once you get it established. Now stick with me here. There are some tall grasses. They're all in the Miscanthus genus, sometimes called silvergrass. And their fall color is something I really like. You can let it just start turning a little bit straw color and cut it down, but I like to leave it throughout the winter and just cut it down before spring starts. And you get this big haystack of brownish, kind of tawny colors that I think are beautiful in the garden, and not much in the way of water once you get them started. So I hope I've piqued your interest about some of this fall color. Yes, you can do it. You don't have to take a flight to Vermont to pull this off. Pretty much all the plants I talked about today are here at Paradise Farm. So come out, talk to Pat and Celeste. They'll introduce you to some of these plants, and you just might end up bringing one home for your garden. Big thanks to Paradise Farms for letting us in. And here's a little something you may not know about fall color. It's not true that little pixies come out and start painting them orange and red and yellow. What actually happens is the green chlorophyll starts to break down, and that reveals all those bright colors that are the carotenoids. So if that comes up on Jeopardy, you got the answer. Next up, we're talking about wine. Santa Barbara is wine country. We're covered with vineyards all over the place. And I'm going to meet with Drew Cuddy at Satellite. We're going to talk about dry farming techniques and how they're used in our local vineyards. I am at Satellite on State Street. The motto is farmer to table, farmer to glass.
So we're a fully farmers market vegetarian restaurant, a natural wine shop. So all of the products we serve will be at least organic, oftentimes are generatively farmed.
So I understand you are farm raised as well. Could you tell me a little bit about dry farming?
Wine growing is variables, like
Right.
wine making is variables. It's just infinite numbers of choices. So there's some really great techniques for going light on irrigation, watering at certain times, but then also going back as far as the Spanish founding Santa Barbara, there's traditional ways of planting grapes too, sort of bush vines, where you plant rather than on a trellising system, you actually plant a single vine with a lot of space between vine to vine. And so those vines, they're not as productive, but the roots tend to go a lot deeper.
When we're talking about irrigation, it's always about watering deeper, less frequently, so you have a root system that's more sustainable. We're not feeding the plants, we're feeding the soil. We're trying to create a really dynamic web of life in the soil. How does that transpose to grape growing?
When we're talking about regenerative farming, you want to have diversity, because in a monoculture, that's where you just have one type of plant. A pest can roll in, and it has nothing conflicting with it. It's nothing pushing back.
Sure.
So it'll just take over. When you have competition, you have flows of energies. And that's what biodynamics really talks about, is like these energy flows. And so when you have conflicts, whether you have aphids and spiders and mice and gophers and deer and soybeans, whatever's growing in your vineyard, all of those things serve to be competition for one another, and they also help to recharge the soil with the various nutrients that they are able to move back into the system. So there's this sort of, should you be totally hands-off or should you be totally hands-on? And what I've found that a lot of the people who we really work with, this is our whole sort of local wine wall here, is they're adding wildflowers. They're bringing in different species that are local. Some of them are putting up owl boxes in the vineyard, so that there's opportunities. It's like creating as much opportunity for life to flourish in the vineyard is doing just as much work or more than spraying Roundup or any of the other miserable pesticides that I was raised on. It's about creating life.
From what you know and the people you work with know about growing grapes in this way, how would you take that to your garden?
Any way you can create diversity without adding something that starves or kills an element of your garden, I think is a really important lesson we can take from organic and biodynamic and regenerative farming and viticulture.
Right now, as we're talking here, we're in September, fall is coming. We're doing other things in this episode about fall color, that sort of thing. What's going on in vineyards right now?
It's all harvest. Every night, every early morning, crews are getting out there, and right through early October, every single night. If you drive out there, you'll see headlamps as far as the eye can see.
Wow. Is this a good time for people to, without getting in the way, experience a little bit of fall color?
It's an awesome time. I mean, you know, in the Northeast, you get the entire forest changing color.
Right.
Here we get the vineyards changing color. So you get that same turn from green to yellow to deep red leaves. Take a trip to Los Alamos sometime and just like look on either side of the 101, and you'll just see September through November, this quick change. It's really beautiful. And it's, you know, I grew up in Midwestern Canada. I really like miss the fall colors and get it out there in the vineyards. And it's really special.
If somebody wants to experience the result of these practices, how do they get a sample?
Whatever you do, don't go to a big brand grocery store to buy your wines. We all buy, you know, great produce, go to the farmer's market. We're buying it, you know, at least organic for ourselves. And then, you know, you go to a grocery store shelf and you buy something that's just loaded with all these extra sort of preservatives and chemicals. Go to a small shop, let them know what you're into, let them know that you're looking for something that's at least organic, but preferably regeneratively farmed, and they'll lead you in the right direction.
That's great. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Hey, big thanks to Drew Cuddy and information about Satellite. A little more on wine. It was Robert Louis Stevenson who said, "Wine is poetry in a glass." I think that's just beautiful. Question for you. What occupies 37 acres of prime real estate in Montecito and will blow your horticultural socks off? I think you know the answer. It's Lotusland right here. I'm going to speak with Chris Ziliotto, who's going to tell us all about the sustainable practices that are used here at Lotusland. I'm with Chris Ziliotto. He's the Sustainability Program Manager. Tell us a little about how you got here and what goes on.
We pride ourselves at Lotusland of being a sustainable horticulture-oriented garden. That means that we do not use any synthetic pesticides on site. We do not use synthetic fertilizers, and we instead opt for a more regenerative approach to horticulture based off of soil building, habitat, diversity over sterility, and build a garden that is resilient.
Talk to me about water management. You've got some plants here that you can't just walk away from and wait for rainfall.
Through building healthy living soils on site, we proactively manage to build soil carbon, soil organic matter to make sure that we're making our soil as water holding as possible. Looking back at water data usage back to 1986, we've actually reduced water use 22%.
How proactive is that? I mean, are you making adjustments and tweaking irrigation systems in real time?
We strive to check before irrigating instead of having a clock that goes off every 4 days. The system runs for 45 minutes. We'll go with probes and check. And sometimes that means that we water more frequently in times of hot weather.
Could you talk a little bit, just for the viewers at home, about where the actual absorbing roots are? Because you see all the time somebody who planted something 10 years ago and there's still 2 emitters at the base of the trunk, and they think they're watering the plant.
We're going to do a lot of overgeneralizing.
Sure.
But most of the feeder roots on, like, say, a mature tree are going to be at the drip line.
And a drip line is?
The drip line is, if you look at the outline of the tree, by the end of the canopy, straight down.
So it's the edge of your umbrella.
Yeah.
It's going to hit the top and then it's going to drip. That's the drip line, is where it sheds the water down to the ground. So we've got different water delivery systems, right? We've got the rain, we've got micro sprays, we've got drip emitters, we've got inline, we've got overhead spray.
Lotusland is a great context to talk about that in, because we have so many plant types. Things like fern, understories will generally opt for an overhead spray, just because these plants are a lot more dynamic of plantings.
Do you use drip around here?
So we do all the classic water saving stuff, drip irrigation. If a plant dies and you replant a couple, it's a lot of effort constantly moving and adjusting drip tubing, which also, you know, that's a whole nother discussion about incorporating all this plastic into gardens. What's the environmental footprint of thousands of feet of drip tubing being put into spaces? What happens to it? The system breaks, you replace the system. Where does it go? The landfill.
What do you like most about your job?
I never know what I'm going to do each day. Some days I get to garden, other days I get to do cool community things like this. Other days I get to crawl under the main house to grab a skunk. It's always something new.
Well, it looks like you're doing a great job. I thank you for your time.
Cool, thank
Good to
you.
meet you. Are you ready? Okay, don't be nervous. Okay. About 20 years ago when we started the show, Owen Dell and I had a pet mascot from one of the episodes, a rubber chicken named Gertrude. Now we've upgraded. We've got Runty the Chicken, and we're gonna learn all about irrigation tips.
Hi, I'm Tom with Aquaflow Supply, and I'm here with Runty, and we're here to talk to you about some fall irrigation tips to set up your landscape for success this year. So Runty, what should we do first? I agree, Runty. We should definitely change how we irrigate our landscape. One way to do it is by using a seasonal adjust function that a lot of your landscape controllers have, which just allows you to dial down the duration of your water windows, allowing you to have some water savings and give the plants exactly what they need to be successful with the cooler temperatures. So Runty, I have my irrigation timer here. I'm going to show you how to switch over to our seasonal adjust function. That allows me to dial in the exact percentage of watering I want for each month. So July is definitely going to have different water requirements than January, so I want to make sure that reflects in my controller right here. As your plants exit their flowering and fruiting phases, they then focus on root structures. So having less frequent but more deep watering will encourage root growth and development over the winter time. And when the rain does come to Santa Barbara County, incorporating something like this rain sensor will automatically turn off your controller when there's a weather event. And Runty just told me that if there's persistent rainfall, please consider turning off your controller and hand watering whenever your plants require it. And Runty, what's your favorite tip for the fall? Runty's favorite tip is to take this opportunity to prune your trees and apply a mulch and compost. That'll build your soil and encourage the best root growth and tree health moving forward into this cooler season. And for any other irrigation tips, come into an Aquaflow store all over Southern California. One of our qualified representatives would be happy to help you with your landscape needs.
And there you have it, irrigation tips straight from the chicken's mouth. You know, fall is a good time to be thinking about your fruit trees. If you want a really great harvest from your fruit trees in the spring and summer, fall's the time to be paying attention to them and giving them the care that they need.
Hi there, I'm Karen Chrisman, certified arborist and owner of Arbor Services Incorporated. And today we're going to kick off fruit tree pruning season by learning some basic tips on deciduous fruit trees. Fall is a great time to do our maintenance on our deciduous fruit trees because the leaves are starting to fall, the fruit's been picked, and now we can plan for next year's crop by making corrective cuts, reducing the height, and getting rid of some unneeded deadwood or disease branches. So let's get started. Let's emphasize that with all tree trimming, we need to make proper pruning cuts, or else we introduce injuries to the tree that attract disease and pests. So for today's tree, we're working on a plum, and our plan of attack is to get rid of anything that's dead, diseased, dying, or broken. And then from there, let's work on the height so that our homeowner can reach the fruit. Okay, our work is done. Our homeowner's tree is now a reasonable height for next year's harvest, and it looks beautiful.
we got a new segment, Viewer Mail. So I just heard from Amelia Earhart. That name seems really familiar. She's concerned that her gardener is spending all this time raking up leaves, putting them in trash cans, goes out with the green waste. She's paying for that time. Is there another way to approach things? And I say yes. Why do we call them leaves? Well, maybe we're supposed to leave them there where they fall. Mother Nature does not own a rake, okay? Leaves fall to the ground, they gradually decompose, they enter back into the soil, they provide nutrients. In many cases, it's a good idea to leave these on the ground, and when they dry up a little bit, use something like a cultivator, the long-handled type or this, and you can work them into the ground, and they'll gradually decompose and nourish your plants. One of my big complaints is what I call compulsive raking syndrome. I know a lot of people like their gardens to look neat and clean, but when you rake excessively, you create a crust on the soil. That brings a lot of harm as well. We're not saying we leave the leaves everywhere if they're on a patio or somewhere where they're an eyesore or you might slip on them. Certainly rake them up, but put them back in the garden, work them back in. It's free mulch, it's free fertilizer for your garden. Can't go wrong with that. I got one more tip for your garden. I call it chop and drop. There's a lot of plants that are pretty easy to snip up, and although it'll take a little bit of time, what's wrong with just cutting your cuttings, that's a little redundant, into smaller pieces and letting those sit on the ground where they're unobtrusive and let those gradually decompose, work their way back into your soil. That's called chop and drop. Before we started shooting this segment, we were talking to one of the groundskeepers here, and we asked if we could gather up some leaves and clean the area up a little bit. She said yes, but when you're done, put one leaf back on the ground, because in Japanese gardens, we're not looking for perfection. So I'm putting this back. There you have it, fall in Santa Barbara. It may not be Vermont, but we do a pretty good job. So go out in your garden, appreciate fall, take in the sights and the landscape. Also, if you want to catch any of our past 32 episodes, yes, we've been doing it that long, or you just want to refresh yourself, go to our YouTube channel. And if you have any pressing questions about your garden, I'd be happy to answer them. Just write to us and email. That's it. I'm Billy Goodnick. Thanks for watching.